everyone, and welcome back to our traditional videos, video lessons dedicated to our monthly art challenge in our Facebook group. So we all know today we're doing this very actually simple composition with the pomegranate, a little spoon, and a few seeds scattered around. Actually, I have already done all the sketching and drawings. I don't think there is any need to spend our time in explanation of how to do it. So you can transfer it, you can copy it, whatever. So I have two sketches done. This is student watercolor paper. I will explain what's going to happen here, and that is my final sketch on a 100% cotton watercolor paper. I will put it aside, and we will get back to this one in our next video when we will be talking about painting. Okay, but today I will introduce you something as an extra step in preparation to our watercolor. We're gonna do here a tonal sketch. This is the first and quite important thing, and especially in pictures or subject when we have loads of loads happening in terms of distribution of light and shadow. And it could be very confusing because, for instance, like just for instance, if you look at the this object here, right? Say in this area, when it compared to the background, that edge is lighter than the background, and exactly opposite here. And everything, actually something similar happens to every even single small object here. So we might get carried away when we start painting without any kind of mapping first our shadows and the light. And that process, and especially it's very helpful when it comes to difficult objects in terms of light and shadow, as this one. So try to do it first on some sketch paper, in pencil, and this is what it actually called, tonal sketch, and this is what we're going to do today, tonal sketch of that picture. So I would like to understand myself, where are my lights, how is like the shadows different like from the lighter areas, and I'm gonna map it here. So first thing, where we start, we always look at our main object and we will try to find, well, we will find the highlight. Highlight is the brightest spot on the object. We have highlight here, and in the form of highlight, this is the rim, the thickness of the spoon, and that is actually very important. So I have it drawn here. Okay, the thickness of the spoon will represent the highlight here, and that area, the lightest areas. And on the smaller objects, we also have little highlights, the brightest spots on them. These will be left blank. They represent the actually color of the paper. We will not paint them. So any attempt to apply white paint over will fail. Never do that. Actually, also don't try to do to cover them with masking liquids. It's not even a bad practice, it will just won't work for you. Okay, so never do that. All highlights, we will find location for them, shape of them, and the contrast we will do in at this moment with pencil, and a later stage with paint. So don't try any other aids, like as I said, a masking fluid or when you paint it over, use white paint. No, no, no. Forget about this. Okay, let's start to work. Now, first of all, I'd like to check how dark is my background. You see the contrast here, it's quite strong. And I think if I say at the moment I will do something like that, I just need some sort of starting point in the darkness. I would be not far away from here. If I needed more, I will do more. But at this moment, I'm kind of placing some dark spot, just like guidance for me, and I will continue with my pomegranate. And what I need to do is locate the position of the highlight and the shape of the highlight. Also, it's a bad practice if I draw like this, the shape of it. So we don't do that. Like I will erase it. And what I'm trying to do, establish the shape and position using only shading. And this is what I'm trying to do now. Also, as you can see, the contrast between the highlight and the actual, say, darkness of the object is quite strong as well. So, but at this stage, I would say this will be enough. And using some not technically perfect shading techniques, I would like to cover all surface of my pomegranate in one flat shading. By saying flat, I mean there will be no, at this moment, any shadows, you know, reflexes, midtones, just a flat gray tone. So also, if you noticed, when I'm shading this, I'm placing my strokes along the shape of this spherical pomegranate. It will help me in the future to bring up the shape of it, which is, as I mentioned, sphere. I'm not trying to go with the long lines. Don't bother with this. Small patches. My shading goes like a loops. If you look at this like that. It's not an academic drawing or anything, so we can allow ourselves that loose interpretation of shading, because our goal is to find correct distribution of light and shadow. Okay, so as you can see, our object is pretty dark on its own, because like if you notice this contrast between the highlight and that, it's quite strong. It means the tonality of the pomegranate is it's quite dark. It's not very bright, and if you paint it bright, it will be a mistake. And then, since it's darker, we immediately see that this edge supposed to get even darker, something like this even, because otherwise we will not get that perfect contrast edge between the background and the object. So far so good. There is no big difference here. So I don't want to probably shade the whole background, but we will see how far will I go with this. It all means proper balance between light, shadows, midtones, supposed to be observed and preserved. Okay, so we'll go there. So as I can see that top element of the pomegranate around here, that area also lighter, so I can keep going. As logic suggests, the whole background, the darkness of the background here and the darkness of the background here will be identical. So that I supposed to continue in the same value for the background at the moment. Also, I know I can make anything, I mean, like in that case, background darker at any stage, just adding an extra coat, extra layer of my shading. So, but so far so good. I'm trying to keep up with the similar value for the background. So that it looks consistent and uniform. Okay, don't want to go any further. So how it goes here? Obviously, we have some sort of when the shadows transforms into the light, it means as it goes further down, our shading supposed to fade into a lighter value. I keep my pomegranate seeds untouched. I'm just concentrating on proper change, say from dark to light. We need to see that very distinctive change. Okay, so same here, continuing on that side. And we should be very careful around the spoon, because spoon is much lighter than the background. We might get a little bit more darkness around here. As I go, I can understand, I can see it, that like it's quite complex, so I need to keep that balance, because lots of small objects, and even inside our main objects, which is the pomegranate and the spoon, we have lots of different transformations of lights and shadows, and it's very easy, as I said previously, to get confused, lose something, and then as a result we're getting problems and something doesn't look right anymore. Okay, so try avoid to try to avoid applying full strength of darkness, because you need to have ability to adjust some areas. I mean, like if you do them too dark at the moment, you will get stuck, and if something needs to get, say, darker, you will get in trouble because you can't adjust it anymore. And we will do it, all this adjustments gradually. So just like that. As for this tabletop, I think this kind of darkness or lightness or value will do. Hopefully that will be good enough. By the way, I'm using 2B pencil for this. Okay, now let's go back to our object here. Okay, so at this moment, if you think about it, light comes from this direction and hits the object there. It means, so some part of the object will be in the darks, in the shadow. So, and that is that part. You can see it. See here that like that area strictly kind of splits shadow and the light. When I say light, I mean this area that lit up. This is not light, this is highlight. You can't read anything here. It's practically, there is no details there, but the original actual color and actual value of the object will be located around the highlight here. This is the area of the most natural and true values and color, and then it gets like a fall off because the light doesn't hit this area except for the bouncing from the surface. You can see it's some like reflected, but we're not talking about that. We need to get that area slightly darker, and this is what I'm gonna do now. Just simply adding an extra layer of exactly the same pencil darkness. Here. Okay, like that. And now, as you can see, we're immediately getting in trouble because that edge of the object much darker than the background. But we decided that background here and there equally dark. So we need to get more darkness around this edge. And this, how we work it out. So trying to get that side darker. So it doesn't go like the whole way up. It stops somewhere there because that contrast here is kind of very vague, but the darkness of that bit is so defined, you can't avoid it. Like, you know, it has to be darker than this. And also here, it's quite dark. I'm leaving this bright area deliberately because it like represents the highlight, which is bouncing light from the tabletop, lit up that bit. So we keep going, keep going, keep going. So also we have very distinctive shadow here. So that is what we're gonna do also. And there is a shadow there. As long as we're working here with the shadows, why not? Okay. Again, we might need to increase the darkness here. Simple trick. If you would like something to become brighter, you darkening area next to it and vice versa. So immediately I can understand that the contrast created between the highlight and the mid-tone, it's not quite strong. It's stronger here. It means the whole object has to get a little bit darker around this area. This is what I'm doing. I want to get darker. Okay. Like this. So we have created two areas, distinctive areas of light and shadow, but there is that bit which will be much darker. Just the area on the border between the light and shadow. Something like this. You can see it. If you look in this direction, you will notice. At this stage, I don't want to do anything like related to texture, you know, all these imperfections here. To me, that is irrelevant at the moment. So I will leave this area for a while and go in the center of this top. It's very dark. So everywhere I need to understand which is which, what is darker, what is lighter, brighter. So tonality of that piece and the fruit is actually quite similar. So it's only edges that gets darker. Same here. The actual piece of, like, we can call it leaf, tonality of that bit here, like there, is equal to this. It can't be any lighter or darker. The only thing is different is that the tip of it, which is quite dark, and a little bit along the edges. And here is the shadow. So need a little bit more there. That piece darker than the background has to be done this way. Also we can see dark edge. Here is the shadow, very deep shadow. The leaf is some kind of that way, and that edge is darker than the surface of the pomegranate. And this bit is darker here, something like that. You see? So now we're kind of developing the shape of it. So when I will be painting, I will know exactly what to do with my paint, where to get accents of, you know, what has to get darker, what has to get lighter, and so on. Okay, now there is a cast shadow of this thing, and if we think about it again, this is the spherical object, and the cast shadow supposed to be also spherical. It's hard to see here because it's kind of fuzzy, but we can, knowing that, we can kind of reproduce it. What is important to know that the directly under the object, that shadow will be the darkest. I mean, directly here will be the darkest spot, like that. Okay, then we're trying to realize how far, so this shadow goes that way. We can see that there is a difference between shadow and the darkness of the surface. And what I need to understand is the object darker than the shadow here? And it actually is. In this bit, pomegranate will be darker than the shadow, but in here, other way around, shadow will be darker, something like that, right? So now we have more or less sorted our pomegranate. Like that. Looks all right to me. And what I see actually, the central area here will be also slightly darker. And I'm not even starting on the like scattered seeds or anything like that. And that will be done in the as a last step. My next object will be the spoon. Okay, so spoons normally, despite the fact it's kind of very simple objects, loads of confusion with them, especially in here, whether like you can see the like this the bottom of the spoon, but what like you can see clearly is the edge, the thickness. So it's absolutely defined, and that's what we need to show. And again, I'm not trying to work with the seeds at the moment. I will try to make the thickness here this way. I create some shadow in there because it's a very deep contrast there, and something happening outside of that bit, like this. You remember I mentioned if you want to make something lighter, you should do area around it darker. That's exactly what I'm doing around my spoon, and there's a little bit here. Like that. Yeah, there's a little bit of spoon we can see here, so we need to make sure it's visible. All right, now let's go back to spoon. It's a little bit easier than this because spoon is lighter than the background practically everywhere, so we can easily make surrounding area for the spoon darker, and that will give us necessary contrast for the spoon to bring it up a bit. Okay. Also, spoon has cast shadow. We need to make that It's very dark in here. Okay, keep going. Edges of the shadow supposed to be soft, fuzzy-like. And same as before, directly under the object, the shadow will be very dark. You can understand that because of that raised shape here, that dark space will not continue. You can see this shadow kind of fades out and then gets darker when it's approaching the other part of the spoon. And sorry, the handle also has a thickness, and it's done only by shading slightly along this edge like this. Mm-hmm. So we need to make that bit darker. At this moment, since it's all done in grayscale, black and white, we can't use any other tricks with the color contrast. But say here, you see that spoon looks very contrasty compared to the background because spoon is cold and the surface is warm. That creates an extra feeling, like we will do it with the color. But at this moment, all we need to do is just use our shading to create that effect. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if I will recreate that wooden texture on this. I'm not sure. Maybe yes, maybe not. But let's have it done a little bit. Yeah. Like that. More or less correct. So now when we have all these details, obviously this gonna get darker and that thing gonna get darker, so it will. Okay, like this. Yeah. Now, seeds. I'm not sure if I'm gonna do them, all of them now, but who knows, I'll try. Same way, say we'll try to do this one. So we've got a little highlight here. So we need to work out, and that seed here much darker than the background. So we need to produce that slightly lighter in the middle. So that's what it is. And then shadow, again, it has to be darker under the object. like this. Okay, and as you can see, tonality of the seeds is darker compared to objects itself, because some of them, like this one, are in shadow, but still they darker than the tabletop. Each one has separate cast shadow. We don't need to forget that. And so basically, one by one, we're trying to get all objects dealt with. So as you can see, very dark around the highlight and then gets lighter. It's gonna be fun painting it, that's for sure. But whatever I do, I need to sort for myself each separate object that is present here. It's like a little little training before you go any further. Okay. Of course, we can allow some, as I said, loose interpretation of some bits and pieces, but generally it must create complete resemblance of your future artwork. And if you get tonality right, this relations between light and shadow, if you get it right, and even if you get something like a color wrong, tonality will kind of smoothen this. Tonality is always number one priority when you're painting or drawing, and everything's supposed to be done accordingly. So, I mean, when you do it properly, it will look realistic enough, and you know, that's exactly what we need to achieve, isn't it? Okay, what we got here? So it's much darker there. We can see that. Couple of highlights, and it gets lighter to the bottom. Then cast shadow, and keep going. Darker here, highlight. Darker, then it gets lighter to this end. And the highlight, oh, not the highlight, pardon me, cast shadow. Same there. But darker than the next seed. Dark here, highlight, very light in there. Need to darken in the background. like this. Here's dark there, highlight, very light to this edge, we can see that. Everything is darker around there, but then like this. See? Darker here. Darker. Two highlights, very dark at this edge. And cast shadow. And I continue to, well, this could be just simplified. You got the idea. So I need overall darkness increased here. So what I'm doing now, if I shade over the whole bit, the difference between light and shadow will not disappear, but the overall appearance, it will get darker. And obviously we need some darker bit there, a little bit darker here in the spoon. That brings darkness into this bit, like that. Roughly this. So basically that will give us understanding how to work with light and shadow in our final piece, because that is my map of lights and shadow. That will help me a lot, because I literally have studied every single subject on my picture, and that is exactly what I need to achieve. Maybe that. You see? Basically, this is it. I don't want to expand this, but because it's not important at the moment, and we don't need to do that at this stage. In the next video, of course, I will be painting that. It will be very interesting process, but so far so good. I think I have everything balanced, and that is tonal sketch for you. Thank you very much for watching. So I'll see you in the next video when we get painting this stuff. Thank you very much. Bye.